This is the A to Z podcast. Zach Jackson, Andre Knott. Facebook.com/A to Z podcast. A to Z podcast.com. At Akron Jackson, at Dre Knott on most of your favorite social media platforms. Shouts as always to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks for helping to make this happen. Shouts to you guys for helping it grow, for sticking with us. If you're new here, first, welcome. Second, we get excited. We say four-letter words. We venture into immature subjects. So if any of that's not for you, if you're in a work environment or if there are kids around, either go to your earbuds or come back and listen to A to Z at another time. Oh, what a time, Andre. What a time in this world.
Stop with that bullshit. 2020 kids be cussing. They allow it. Trust me. I got virtual school in my house. I'm surprised my kids ain't told me to F off. What a time. Hey, man, you can't even enjoy Victory Monday without having canceled Tuesday.
No, you just don't know. We are recording this, guys, Tuesday afternoon. About 90 or so minutes ago, maybe 2 hours, I don't know, Ohio State, Michigan was officially canceled, which in the scope of things, and if you followed, is not all that surprising. Maybe not surprising hardly at all, but still jarring that you're going to have a football season, as strange as this football season is, and there's not going to be an Ohio State-Michigan game.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, yeah, it's sad that it's not going to happen, but really we're sitting around, and for the people that are angry, Zach, I mean, it was going to be 72-3. In the whole realm of things, I mean, yesterday, and I told the story on the radio, we went on a walk, and we were talking about Christmas and birthdays and everything else with the kids. And AJ was talking about how different his birthday was this year compared to, the previous 5 that he's had. My daughter's birthday is the day after Christmas, and I guess after going through 8 months of what we've gone through, they both she realizes her birthday party won't be like it usually is, and Christmas won't be like it usually is. And she just was like, it sucks. And she was like, I can't wait till this crap is over. And her mom's eyes got real big, and I started laughing because I was surprised she didn't say that. I can't wait till this shit is over. So crap wasn't that bad to me. Even though that's not a word that really is used in our household, and I've never heard my daughter say it, I totally patted her on the back and said, you're right, this is crap. And we explained to her that, 2020 has been a bunch of crap. And regardless, we're going to get better from it. We're going to grow from it. And Jen said it very well to Isabella. She was like, look, this is a year that nobody's going to forget. There's things that have been done this year that have never happened before to any of us. There's things that have happened this year that have never happened before. And if we have civil minds and we respect each other, hopefully by this time next year, we'll be back to some normalcy and we'll get things that we're not used to having. But there's no use in crying and bitching and moaning about the crap we're going through. It's just crap. So I take that conversation to Michigan, Ohio State. I know they've played for 100-plus years. I know all the history. I mean, I don't know many people that love football more than I do or love rivalries more than I. But I really don't give a shit that they're not playing on Saturday. As a matter of fact, between you and I'm pretty sure we're going to see Ohio State play on Saturday. I would rather have a conversation right now with you about who they're going to play on Saturday and who I'd like to see them play on Saturday. I mean, it's fine. I get it. And obviously Herbie made comments a couple weeks back, and what sucks in our day and time, especially when you have a microphone in front of you, and Zach is you very well have stated this to me for many years. Before we did this podcast, after we've done this podcast, and during, the more you tweet, the more you talk, the more opportunity you have a chance to put your foot in your mouth, right?
Yeah.
And Kirk Herbstreit didn't say anything. I mean, and that's the problem when you're Kirk Herbstreit. Like, he should be able to make a tongue-in-cheek joke about Michigan not wanting to play this game and it not turn into he's got to apologize and all this other shit. Yeah. But in PC America, that's where we're at. Because, as I told somebody on Twitter and then I walked away, come on, guys. Michigan's in a bad place. Harbaugh's an idiot. I'm not a fan of his at all. I hope his khakis get stuck up his crack and he never can crack again. But you really think they're avoiding getting his ass kicking? These kids don't know any better.
No, players go to Michigan or Ohio State to play in this game, right? They're not running from it.
Right. So when we start blaming and saying they're ducking Ohio State, shut up. That's stupid. That's what bothers me in these moments and times. There is no way in hell those kids in Ann Arbor got sick or fudging the numbers so they can avoid going to Columbus. That's a bullshit thought process. Don't.
Yeah, no, that is. As for the Herbstreit thing, I was watching it live, and the shock value was minimal. He didn't say anything out of ordinary. And then Reese Davis, I thought, did a great job and went to him or not out of ordinary, out of school, right? Reese Davis did a great job, went back and said, let's clarify. So I guess I understand, but, I guess he towed the line. He went an inch over the line of making an accusation, right?
Yes.
But he said the facts, and that's that. I just want to say two things about this game. One, a long time ago when I was young and working for the Browns, I talked to a scout who basically said, 99% of the time with Ohio State, Michigan guys, by now we know about them. By now we have our feel for them. He said, but you always turn that tape on at the end of the year because if a guy's not bringing it in that game, then you don't want him to start with. He just talked about the level that's expected there. And I can tell you, I didn't grow up an Ohio State fan. Obviously, I grew up with the rivalry and appreciating it and, remember the magical moments. But I didn't grow up involved in it, right, with parents that were alumni or being a huge fan of either side. But you waited for it, right? And as numb as I am to things, as cynical as I am about things, I can tell you the 3 or 4 Ohio State-Michigan games that I covered in person, it always felt different. It just did. Yeah. Urban Meyer taking those teams into the big house where they were the big favorites, and the guys flipping the double birds, right? And Michigan's going for 2. Hell, even going back to the year that Ohio State wasn't good when Braxton was a true freshman, and they should have won the game. Like that's what it was about, right? So it's changed in recent years because Ohio State has hit the turbos and Michigan hasn't been able to keep up. That's not an indictment on Michigan football, frankly, even though they've not been able to keep up. It's not an indictment on the history of the rivalry. It's just disappointing here, as a consumer of football. And I would spin it forward by saying this. I do want to address who they should play or what could happen. Let us keep in mind that the Big Ten was the very first ones to say that we're not going to play, we can't play this year. And we all know that changed for one reason, and that's the peer pressure that those other conferences and schools were going to get their money and the Big Ten was going to lose on theirs. So
thank you.
We've all been under the understanding that things are going to be different this year. The games are going to have to be scheduled on 4 days' notice, and last week Coastal and BYU hit the jackpot, and that there's going to be.
Is Dustin Fox still in Myrtle Beach and growing out
I hope so. For one, I hope so.
You ain't half of Akron and half of Cleveland. He's just growing out a mullet, staying down there.
So throwing that out because anybody that signed up for this, kind of signed up for that. But I just cannot take. If anyone tries the high horse or second guess or whatever, first of all, Ohio State has long played by different rules than 97% of the other programs, but that's facts.
Preach.
Secondly, of course the Big Ten has to bend the rules to get Ohio State in the playoff, get them in the best situation. I don't know what that is. Andre, I know we want to talk about it 2 hours after we record it, maybe 2 minutes, maybe certainly 2 days, something will be resolved. Maybe this part of the conversation will be moot. But, of course, the Big Ten has to do it because it's right. There's one Big Ten team that can win the national championship, Ohio State. That doesn't mean they will. It doesn't mean that they're favored. That doesn't mean that they don't have flaws, and we don't know because they played 4 freaking games, right? But the Big Ten and college football need Ohio State in that playoff.
Yes.
And right now, in this time window, the last couple hours, the next couple hours, couple days, whatever they have to do to make that happen, they have to do. And there should be no bitching or no second guessing of that.
Well, okay, I want to pause on something where you're at. The Big Ten needs Ohio State to play in one of the last games, so all that money can go to all the Big Ten schools.
Yes, that's how it works.
And that's why they're playing. Let's be honest, right? And in reality, we can go back and forth on when they started, when they didn't start. I felt like they screwed up by not starting. To me, you got to stick to your guns. Play spring football if that was really what you thought you were going to do. They got caught with their pants down. Obviously, they should have started at the right time. They got embarrassed because the SEC and everybody else was playing. Cincinnati was playing, and they're less than 2 hours from Ohio State's campus. That was embarrassing because everybody else was playing and they weren't. Now, everybody wants to blame the commissioner. I think you're an idiot for that if you really think one man has that much power. We've had that conversation on this podcast. And let's be honest, The Big Ten played football after they said they weren't going to play football. In my opinion, Zach, it wasn't for Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan.
Never was.
No offense. It was for Ohio State to be able to be one of the top 4 teams so they could have all that money that comes from TV revenue that goes back to all those schools I just talked about. So everybody take a chill pill. No, they're not going to play Michigan, but they're going to play this weekend. And then they're going to go to Indianapolis so they can get that Big Ten Fox money. And then they're going to go somewhere and play on New Year's Eve. And hopefully they win that and they play the other one. So, I mean, this is all about money, Zach. There's no amateurism anymore. There's no – and so for fans to act out of that – and here's the one thing I got to say. A lot of us – I want to be careful how I say this. I know we all care, and I know we have our different reasons for caring. I wish we would put more emotion and time into actually giving a shit and caring about the kids – that are playing this game, that are actually giving up their time, the kids that haven't seen their families and their parents and have actually tried to bubble themselves up so they can play every game they can. I feel bad for the student athletes because they've been shit on, they've been used and abused. All the athletic directors are still making their millions of dollars. All the coaches are still putting the millions of dollars in their pocket, and we're still shitting on the amateur athlete that we're all crying about won't be able to play a game in Columbus against Michigan on Saturday.
No doubt. These times are strange and they're difficult, and you're right, no one cares. Everybody wants it on TV, and it being on TV is what drives the model, right? And it's why the model is ancient, because TV is pumping millions and millions and millions more than ever was before, and not much of it is getting to the athletes, right? It's going to the coaches and the administrators. I understand on multiple levels why college football games sometimes need to be scheduled 9 years in advance, and certainly 9 months in advance at minimum. However, I think we've seen that, it can be done. I think we've seen that if lightning strikes in a certain place, it can be done and create excitement, create betterment for the game, create opportunities for these kids, right? And, if I'm paying a fucking coach $5 million, I need
coach.
Yeah, well, I need checks and balances. I need administrators that he answers to and that keep him in check and all that stuff. But, I mean, if he has to pick up the phone and schedule a game for his team, or he has to pick up the phone and alter the bus schedule or the hotel schedule for his team, then he has to fucking do that. Well, I don't need 17 employees to do that, right?
Right.
Let's all put on our big boy pants here. And this has sucked. Kent State's season might be over at 3 or 4 games, I know. We don't know what's going to happen with Cincinnati and Tulsa and who is it? I think UAB and Houston have had 8 games canceled. We all signed up for this, right? It was the greed that brought the Big Ten back when the Big Ten knew this was going to happen.
Right.
And I'll just say this, everybody having access to social media all the time, regular Joes, assholes that talk on the microphone like us, coaches, administrators, the programs themselves, college and pro. Everybody having social media is not good. But if I'm Texas A&M, I'm getting on social media right now and I'm saying we'll play Ohio State anywhere on Saturday.
Talk that talk.
And when Ohio State says no.
Ooh. That's embarrassing. They can't say no. That's why they got to do it, Zach. And we got to talk it up right now. Forget playing in Indiana again. We already did that. And their quarterback's out. And their coach is very lovable. Let's keep that story what it is. They can go play. They can play OU since OU hasn't played in a month. They can play whomever. They can play. I'm going to say it now. Ohio State is bigger than the Big Ten. They've done their part for the Big Ten. They'll take care of the Big Ten. Give us a real game. Just shut down everybody. Let's go play Texas A&M. Get Texas A&M up here. Let's play them. And I think the Buckeyes will beat the crap out of them because I wasn't impressed by Texas A&M last week in the game that I watched them play. They're good, and they're a one-win team. But if BYU is willing to go across the country in 3 days to go play Coastal Carolina, why in the world can't we step outside of the box and say, you know what, college football fans, 2020 has been crap, as Isabella Marie Knott put so finely yesterday. Give us something. Give me Texas A&M, and Ohio State.
Yeah.
That gives you great numbers. That gives you great numbers on TV, It gets all your eyes on it, and it's a great way of making another thing that I've had to tell my kids about. Hey, we got a lemon, and what do you do with lemons? You make lemonade. That's better lemonade than us watching that. Oh, wait, well, who else could we play? Minnesota, maybe? No thanks.
Right.
Indiana, no thanks. I want to see a noon kickoff, Zach, that Andre's not falling asleep in by the first quarter, or looking for coffee, or looking for something to keep, or riding a stationary bike so I can stay awake for 2 hours.
Well, first, it's not going to happen. Like I said, A&M should flex their muscle and take their time and do it.
Yeah.
But if it did happen, I don't want it at noon. I want it at 7:30 at night. I want it to be the granddaddy of them all, like it would be.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, who else plays this? Who else even plays this weekend?
Who cares? Because it's the big
right. Who cares? That's right. But the season's still going on. We're trying. But by you saying that, just said what the whole deal is. We don't care.
Right.
We don't care about the people. We give us this. When I was in Nashville, I heard on the radio someone say this, that college football this year is just a costume contest, right? It's not a real season. You know, it's people dressed as college football players. And there are real people, and we respect the hell out of them for the grind, especially the guys at the lower levels, especially the people that don't have Ohio State's resources and perks and all of these things. Going through this has been incredibly difficult. And frankly, I worry about the college basketball players, Dre. Campuses are empty. You know, they're there. They're not allowed to go anywhere. Like, we have all these NCAA bullshit restrictions on what their coaches and athletic departments can do for them anyway. Like, you know, that's tough. But I would love to see the game, but I'll just, like I said, here at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, I will be shocked if it ends up being anything other than Ohio State versus a lower-level Big Ten opponent.
Yeah, that's most likely what's going to happen. And by the way, folks, just so you know how we really roll, it's 4 o'clock. But in Zach's world, he's still in Tennessee, and he still can't figure out Central Time and Eastern Time. I want to go back a week. We're still talking college football, and we'll get to the 9-3 team, and we'll get to Carlos Santana taking his talents and his guitar to Kansas City. And I say these things out loud so we actually get to them and don't forget. But this is something I did forget in our last podcast, and I wanted to bring this up. And you've made it known on our podcast that Texas was kind of your school growing up. You had an aunt that lived down there, and Texas was just one of your favorite schools. And I meant to text you, and then I was like, no, I'll talk about it on the podcast. And when 2 weekends ago, when Iowa State and Texas played, and obviously we have a little bit of connection to the Iowa State team, and knowing Matt, you know Matt Campbell a little bit. Just what is it like for you? Because, and I've realized this during the Brown season too, we still have some fandom in us, but our fandom has just changed because of what we've been doing since we were 20 years old. If you do the job the right way or how we were taught to do the job, it's hard to be a fan at times. So our fan moments aren't around nearly as much as they usually are. But there's still some fan in us. Usually if we got $100 or $500 on a game, that's a joke. I'm just playing. We usually want the over or the under. But you're a big Texas fan. Iowa State goes and plays them. And 10 years ago, 20 years ago, hell, 5 years ago, if I would have said Iowa State was going to be Texas, you would have laughed. We would have laughed at you. People would have laughed at you, right?
Yeah.
Just emotionally, what was it like for you to watch Iowa State and Texas and watch the Matt Campbells kick Texas's ass, and Texas has no idea where they're going coaching-wise going forward?
Well, first of all, what's funny about you asking this is that my mom called me the morning of the game and asked me the exact same thing. But the truth is, me and Texas, like, when they won it in 2005, in one of the most incredible football games at any level that I've ever seen, it was like we pretty much broke up then and there. You know, it was like she was my dream girl, and she finally went out with me. And then it was just, we realized that, you know, she changed her number maybe, but we just went our separate ways. But then it just got so bad with the way that they're so entitled there. And like, I guess I had started to break up with them when they played Chris Sims over Major Applewhite, which was before 2005, obviously.
Did Major Applewhite take your girlfriend like he took Ricky Williams' girlfriend?
Yes. And so then when they won it, like, we just kind of broke up, and then it got so bad and they kept losing. Like, I had split. So, yeah, I mean, I make no bones of my loyalty is to Matt and, you know, the 2 or 3 guys on the staff that I know there, right? And, like, I mean, as much as I'm a fan of anything, like, yes, I was rooting for them that day. But honestly, like, when I went to Austin a year and a half ago for work, like, it was really cool for me as an adult to be back in Austin and walk around campus, right? But, like,
dude, there's nothing like Austin, Texas. By the
yeah,
way. I only visited
that was like a
2 hours.
total flashback to my youth, and I was actually a fan again for that moment, but it wasn't a deep emotional connection at all. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to be a hardcore Longhorns fan again. It was like, this is awesome that first of all, that I've lived this long, and secondly, that I can picture being 8 years old and being out on that field. You know, like that's what it was. And because honestly, my next thought was, oh my God, this fucking traffic to get back to the hotel is going to be awful. That's how I think. Yeah. Like people say, what do you root for? Like, guys, I don't like. Obviously, you meet people along the way, and obviously you have things that you root for, but you honestly root for smooth games, no disasters. You don't have to worry about learning to spell to his last name. Like, those are the things you root for when you're a sports writer. Honestly. You know, like, the weather was great. It rained on the first day I got to Nashville, and it sucked. It felt like home. It was cold and rainy, and you couldn't go anywhere because of the pandemic. And even if you wanted to go walk around, I was 3 blocks from the action. It was miserable. Well, the day of the game, like, it was a long game, but it was an entertaining as hell game. It was a smooth game, and the weather was great. And, like, the 1.5 mile walk back to the hotel after the game was just, like, what my old hardened soul needed. You know, because it was not snowing, it was not raining, it was not 29 degrees, and it was time to just, like, kind of decompress from my work and say, oh my God, like, actually getting to cover a real playoff race here in an organization that might keep its head coach and build something here. Like, this is really cool. And Nashville is one of my favorite cities in the world. You know, I walked around it twice in the 3 days or whatever that I was there. And then it's on to the next thing, because that's just, you know, what it is when you do this.
Let's stay on the college stuff for a second, and we'll get to your weekend in Nashville. Your brothers, for people that you're a big college basketball fan. Your brother's a college basketball coach, and you said you're worried about college basketball. I am as well. I don't know how it's going to work, but and not without telling everything about what Brody's going through, especially on the level he's on. How difficult is it for him to even try to get the balls rolling and trying to get a season started right now?
Yeah, so his team was sent home before Thanksgiving. The campus is not open right now, and they're not a scholarship program. So they are planning to practice. I don't know if it's the day after Christmas or the day after the first of the year, but until then, they're pretty much shut down. So there is a hope and an expectation that around January 20th, they will start a season that likely will be conference only, that almost certainly will be abbreviated in the number of games. And I mean, normally their first game would be like 3 weeks ago, right?
Right.
So yeah, they were able to practice from November 1st until the 21st or whatever when they were sent home. But now, I mean, unless his kids live there full time, and I really don't know which ones do and which ones don't. You know, most of them, all but 3 or 4 of them, are from a 2.5 hour radius. So I would imagine they're all at home right now. I could be wrong on that, but I don't even know. There's definitely no organized basketball activity.
Yeah, it just sucks. I mean, and because we get caught up, and the only reason I had to bring that up, and I'm not getting in a pulpit. That's not what this podcast is for. I just feel like sometimes we need, and unfortunately in this COVID-ravaged year, there's so many assholes that react with, well, it's not happening to me, and they're pissed off. And I only wanted you to tell that story because for as much venom as we're all spitting about Ohio State, Michigan not happening, and that privilege taken away from us. And I'm not saying it's because of your brother. I'm saying it's because of all the brothers that like your brother out there, that are trying to put programs together that aren't taking fancy jets, to Hawaii for Hawaii Classics, but riding on vans and buses for the love of the game. Because that's really what this is all about, especially when it comes to NCAA basketball, when it comes to high school sports. And a lot of kids across this country that just love the game and love the camaraderie, and the coaches that love just, coaching kids and helping kids become men. or women, because the female sports are going to do the same thing. I just wanted you to tell that story to put into connotation just what's really going on with the majority of our kids, just not our scholarship kids that are living in their own bubble anyway. You know, like North Carolina basketball players live in a bubble in 2020, in 2010, and what year did Jordan leave? 1984, they were in a bubble.
Yeah.
Like, there's a bubble for those athletes all the time at the big schools, at the top, at the Power Fives. And look, there's not a lot of stories out there about what a Mount Union's going through, or what your brother's school is going through. And to me, they're the ones that screwed more than everything else. They're not playing trying to get to the NBA. They're playing because they just love the freaking game. They love being around each other. And I've said this a million times, and I'll continue to say it. The only thing I really miss about sports, about playing sports or being an athlete, is the camaraderie of being in the locker room. The in-between, practice moments where you're busting balls with each other, or you're telling stories with each other, sitting around the locker room, or traveling to games. I remember that stuff more today at 42 years old than I do whether I made the right block or whether I hit the free throw that I was supposed to hit. And it just sucks how many kids, and there's way more kids that are going through that, Zach, than the ones that we're complaining about not having a game this weekend.
Oh, no doubt about it. So yeah, these times are just hard, and the NFL's got all the money in the world, right? And they say they're going to power through. It's not the case. I mean, even on Brody's team, there's kids that need that structure, right? Half his players are either staying in the apartment that their dad pays for, frankly, or they're going home to the full family and whatever it is they do and wherever they live. But like, half of them need that basketball structure, that college structure,
we all need it.
That coaching, that Reg fixing their car, right? Like, they need that. And that half on his team is like 90% of the guys on full scholarship, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
All right, so, and you do this how you want to do this. Big weekend for the Cleveland Browns, as we all know. And I got time. I don't know how much time you got.
I got an idea.
I'm not in a rush on this point. All right. Well, no, I'm just saying I got plenty of time to go on this podcast. I hope you do. So, and I don't know how much you want to tell or whatever else, but it's a great weekend to go to Tennessee. And we said last week that the memories we have of Titans games are crazy because all the Browns-Titans matchups since the Browns came back in '99 have all seemed to have just off-kilter things happen. You went down a couple days early. I think I was driving home Thursday night from doing my TV show on STO, and you and I started talking. And you're like, I was real excited. I think it basically started with, I was real excited to go down here. And then I drove 2 hours, and the weather was just like it was at home. And I went to this hotel room, and I haven't moved. And I laughed. How nice was it as a sports reporter to actually go to a game for a weekend? Because this is the first time you've gone on the road this season, isn't it?
No, it's the third, but it's the first since mid-October.
You went to Baltimore, my bad.
Yeah, I went to Pittsburgh too, although that's just a there and back in the same day. Yeah, it's strange. It's always nicer to be there. It feels like a game, you watch. And honestly, my impression is, I spent 7 minutes walking on Broadway. I mean, my impression from being there is, oh my God, these receivers were wide open. Kevin Stefanski put on a clinic on Sunday, guys.
Yes,
like, the Browns showed up ready to play. They used 5 defensive linemen early in the game to throw Tennessee off their blocking schemes and their run game off.
I love that.
The Titans stubbornly kept running. They went shotgun. They knew Baker would have time to throw, and they let him get confident. And I know, because I tell the truth about Baker Mayfield, that some of you turn it into some personal war and everything like that. Here's one thing I know for sure about him. Like, he doesn't hide much, right? He's online all the time. He bites back at people. He's supremely confident, and his body language shows when he is and the few times that he isn't. And they let him get hot in that game. And he was both prancing around and throwing it like, we're here. And, again, keep telling you, it doesn't matter about the outside. It doesn't matter, and the good teams manage that. But the Browns made a statement to everyone on the outside that we can beat a good team, that we can do more than hand the ball to 24 and occasionally 27. And it got hairy. It shouldn't have gotten to that point. Really, there's only one real push that the Titans made, and Adam Humphries drops the ball straight up in the air, and the guy who's 3 yards behind in coverage catches it. So that ended the real threat. The Browns went down there and freaking elbow dropped the Titans, and that opens up the possibilities. I'll just say this.
Well,
over the last month, the Browns are the best team in the AFC North. The Browns have won in different ways, and the Browns have won within their formula, which is run and cause turnovers, but they have not been bound by that. They have not been limited by that. And now you're allowed to look and say, okay, this is a team that is really getting good at the right time because they're clearly better than they were a month ago and certainly better than they were 2 and 3 months ago.
Yeah. I want to say this the right way because everyone gets so frustrated when you say, well, they just been beating bad teams. And there's some truth. There's truth to that. I mean, you look at the records of the teams and it's there. And I'm glad you said that about how they've been the best team in the AFC North over the last month and a half. And the Steelers, despite their record, it finally bit them last night. And I said to Rob and Dennis, 2 of my friends that are huge Pittsburgh fans, and I did part of it to piss them off. But like at 2 PM, I was like, I hope your offensive line is ready because that team with no nicknames, defensive line, is gonna give y'all hell. And it took Rob 24 hours after he told me to fuck off after the game last night to admit this morning that I was right. That Washington's defensive line was legit. I want to go back to Kevin Stefanski, though, and the conversation, because people get pissed, and people are so I'm trying not to fight with people because I'm sick of fighting with people, but the sensitivity that we have towards the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield is ridiculous. I had somebody tweet me, like, in the second quarter, way to not pick the Browns. You feel good about yourself? And I was like, yeah, I feel great. Why would I not? I'm not, I didn't get paid. Like, my opinion was that. I gave my opinion. I'm right some weeks. I'm wrong some weeks. I didn't sit out there to hurt their feelings. I was wrong. Big deal. A lot of people were wrong in taking Tennessee. But I want to state this. And I want to say this in a different way than I would say when they beat Cincinnati. And I would go, oh, Cincinnati sucks. Tennessee's defense, they've got basically a walk-on cornerback that Peoples-Jones ate alive, as he should have. I mean, hey, one's a 7th-round pick, one was an undrafted guy. And the 7th-round pick ate him alive, but it comes back to great coaching. Both of the coaches are very great. I think Vrabel's one of the best coaches in football. And I think Kevin Stefanski has shown us in 12 games that he has the ability to dissect what he sees and put a scheme together that he can get his players to buy into early in the week. And then he can go out and play it on Sunday. The things they did to beat Tennessee to show it was scientific in how he broke down and what he attacked. The Titans are a good team, but because they swung and missed a couple of times in the offseason, they have no pass rush. Because of Dory Jackson, their number one corner is hurt. Their corners aren't in a good place. Their safeties in Vaccaro, who I liked and I liked in college, a little too aggressive at times. And I remember I watched Scott Van Pelt last week, Thursday night, when he has Bill Barnwell on, who at one time, and he's blocked me and I don't give a shit, and it's Christmas time, so I'm going to be pissed at anybody. I'll talk about phony Grossi. Thought Bill Barnwell was running the Cleveland Browns team. Remember that was his throw in the dark?
That's one of his gems, yes. That's one of his gems.
Because he knows nothing at all about the team. He just throws shit at the wall and sees what'll stick. And he said Bill Barnwell was running the team. Well, Bill Barnwell said something Thursday night on Scott Van Pelt. And I don't promo a lot of stuff that don't got nothing to do with me. They don't put money in my pocket. But Barnwell on Scott Van Pelt on Thursday nights is one of the most informative things you can watch going into an NFL weekend. And Barnwell said, and I remember I looked it up right after because I don't know all the nerd numbers or whatever else. But Barnwell said the Browns have a legitimate chance in Tennessee because the Titans are giving up over 20 yards, or they're like the 29th or 30th team against play action. And I remember that was one of how you hear a lot of stuff throughout the week, but I remember going, well, if Tennessee's bad against play action and they can't get to the quarterback and the Browns already run play action, this might be the perfect matchup for the Browns. And it didn't hit me until Barnwell said that. And then I kind of looked at a couple more numbers because on the other side, the Titans were averaging 20 yards per throw with play action. And I remember thinking to myself, well, whatever team deals with the play action best will win the game. But Stefanski changed everything, Zach, by like you said, like by early on, and can we give a game ball to Sheldon Richardson? I know everybody wants to annoy him.
Oh, he deserves one for sure.
Sheldon Richardson played the game of his life. He had the two biggest plays in the game, in my opinion. And stripping Henry early, getting penetration early. He got penetration all game. He earned his money. And I know Sheldon likes to talk. I like his personality. I know some don't. Sheldon, talk your talk this week. But I'll just say this about Stefanski. I'll get out of the way. I know it's long-winded. I love that on Sundays now, whether the Browns win or lose, I got a pretty good feeling that the coach of the Browns has looked at the tape and has a pretty good idea of how his team needs to attack that other team. And if Baker Mayfield can't grow in confidence with that guy calling his plays, I don't know how else he's going to be successful.
Yeah,
because the kid, he threw the ball the right way. He made the right decisions. And if he can't trust that Stefanski puts him in the right thing and to just roll it with Stefanski has, he won't be successful in the NFL. No. Because Stefanski's going to give him a great chance to be a great quarterback.
It's the perfect marriage, right? They let it rip situationally, and he did a great job. And the play action to Peoples-Jones, he froze everybody, and Baker made an incredible fake, an incredible read, and then had time to wait for Peoples-Jones to get even more open, and then makes a great throw down the field right in the breadbasket, and they go. It's like they went for the kill. They saw it, and that's encouraging. That's rare, right? I think the world of Kevin Stefanski and his game plans and his approach to the game. I think this offensive line continues to just drill people, and that goes back to the coach allowing him to do certain things. I have been as critical as anyone and realistic as anyone about Rashard Higgins. And the fact is, this is the second staff that wouldn't give Rashard Higgins a jersey in a game just 2 months ago. And he goes out, and what happens when he gets his chances, Dre? He balls out. He does. I mean, he is not – the reason he's a free agent for months and the reason people bail on him is because he does not have one outstanding trait. How often does he drop a pass? Rarely ever.
Never.
Right? The quarterback –
usually where he's supposed to be.
Right. Whether it's by design or by freelance or by emergency, quarterback trusts where he's going to be and that it's almost always going to be caught. So, they played really well, and that obviously kind of opens the door to, okay, as it stands right now, and there's 1,000 different scenarios. That number's not exaggerated, but the most likely scenario is that on January 9th, the Browns are going to be right back in Nashville for a rematch. The most likely scenario says the Titans, if they choose to cover a receiver the rest of the way, win their division and are the 4 and the Browns are the 5. So that's not settled, and I think it's great. It's both great and it's important that the Browns play the Ravens this week and are on Monday Night Football, because I think if they had a letdown game this week, that they would have a big letdown, right? Because they were doing this. But for right now, indisputably, they are the kings of the city. They are the kings of the earth. And as long as they can ride that, then just enjoy it, because that there is so little that you can nitpick from that game, and you can't do anything but applaud the coach on down for how they planned to attack the Titans and how they just ripped their freaking throats out right away.
Yeah, they did. And you know what? I kind of want to see a rematch, because I think Vrabel is a very good coach. Vrabel's team didn't quit. They didn't roll over. And I know that, look, it's the NFL. You shouldn't do that anyway, right? But they didn't quit. And I think they walk away from that game saying they want another piece of the Cleveland Browns. And they just might get it on January 10th. And I hope they do. Because then that, to me, would take the next step of, okay, how great are you, Kevin Stefanski? What do you have in your pocket to go against a guy that now is mad at you?
Hey, let me really hold that thought right there. I want to say this about Vrabel and the Titans. This is the time last year that they got hot, and they rode it all the way to the AFC Championship game, right?
Yep.
And they've had some things go wrong with injuries and with personnel decisions, and they don't have a pass rush. And it's a lesson in how you have to load up at the premium positions. And, people right now accuse you of being negative if you ask any questions. Well, having advanced level questions and advanced level thinking is a sign of progress. And I know most of you don't know this if you've been following the fucking Browns for 20 years. But, Dre, what do you do with Olivier Vernon, who's going to be 31 years old and free agent, and who's now had 3 really good games, but there is only 3. I mean, how do you handle that?
I go find a young defensive end in the draft and say, thank you, Olivier. Have a good life. That's not hard. That's not hard. That's life. That's just like, all right, it's the perfect segue, and I'm not trying to walk away from the Browns because I still want to talk NFL. Like, I hear everybody, I love you guys. I love you guys. But y'all got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. It's like the Carlos Santana thing today with the Indians. And I'm going to get in trouble for saying what I'm saying because I love Carlos. I love Carlos. He's one of my favorite players. He's a cool ass dude. I can text him right now and tell him my wife's company has a kid that would love to put a smile on his face. He would pick up his phone in broken English and do it right now because that's Carlos Santana. But all baseball season long, all I heard were fans and scouts tell me that they think his swing was getting long and he was finally showing his age, blah, 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 blah. If you pay attention, read the tea leaves, you knew he wasn't coming back to the Indians. Like, it was pretty set in stone he wasn't coming back. But the minute he signs, he's a little bit older. I know he's been with the team for 10 years, and that's great. And look, and all of our stories would be so much better if the storybook story in every sport was a guy's drafted by a team and plays his whole career with his team. And this is why we keep going back and why we're having these conversations about Baker Mayfield and is he average, is he great? Because we all want to get to nostalgia, and we want to have the Bernie Kosars in our lives, and we want to have these guys that played with the team forever. That don't happen no more, people. Like, you look at you wrote about the 0-16 Browns, which was not that long ago. And how many players are still left from that season?
3 years ago today, John Dorsey got hired.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my point is, this changes quick, people. This is not a long love relationship. It is in and out. Thank you, ma'am. Call you at 2 a.m. Maybe we'll do another booty call again. So, Olivier, thank you. It's been a good booty call. We'll see you. We're going to find somebody else to fill that spot. That's how it works. It doesn't feel good, but it's how it works. I mean, I look at the Indians roster from 16, 17. There's like 4 or 5 guys left from it. It's how it works. And I know we don't all like it, but money's involved. But you know what it all is? A little bit like we talked about Ohio State, Michigan. It's a business. It is a business. And these teams are going to find ways. And let's be honest. And I don't want to put Vernon down right now because you said it so nicely. He's been hit or miss for me. And I can do hit or miss for probably $1.5 million with some kid I could draft some kid.
Well, I see, but that's why I asked, because I don't think you can. I mean, this is pro sports, right? Like, you've got to have pass rushers. And
no doubt.
Like, has he played to $13 million a year? No. But when he does have that one big game, is he worth more than that? Yes.
No. Is he more than that? That's a good question.
I mean, going back 6-8 weeks ago, we said, okay, assuming Dwayne Haskins never makes it, or certainly doesn't look like he's ever going to be in the Washington football team's plans anymore, right? Was it really that awful of a pick, given the importance of the position?
No, yeah. We did talk about that. That was a good point. What positions do you have to win? You have to have
a quarterback first and foremost. You have to have almost always you have to have that number one wide receiver. And those guys take different forms, right? But you definitely have to have a stable of pass rushers, and you have to have one knockout corner with a lot of decent guys around him. If you only have you can get by with volume of bodies in the secondary if you've got some position versatility guys, especially the way as the game is going. But you have to have 5 NFL level corners. And the only way you can get away with less than that is if you have that one knockout A-plus guy. I mean, it's just so hard to find pass rushers and cover guys, and they play together and lean on each other so much. I mean, Miles was gassed the other day, right, Trey? Like, all of a sudden, where is he, right? And there was a couple times he got held, and there was one time he came in and hit Tannehill's arm. So the one sack is huge. But, that guy has changed games, and that guy has changed the Browns season and maybe the trajectory of the franchise, right? Olivier Vernon plays every snap the other day when the Browns needed him. Sheldon Richardson, going to be 30 next year, due to make $12 million. What do you do with him? Because when you get the A game of Sheldon Richardson the other day, the other offense is going, fuck, I don't know what are we supposed to do then?
Right.
We got to put 2 guys on him to get our simple power play going. Like, it's we'll see.
I mean, well, that's why I want to see a rematch, though, because I want to. You know what? Like Tennessee, and it's funny, Tennessee, and this is the part of winning that's fun. I talked to your counterpart at the Athletic that covers Tennessee on the show last Thursday, and it was funny because he knows the team, just like you know your team, he knows his team. And the Titans became the Titans and went on that crazy run that they went on last year because they were built the right way. Right, Zach? I mean, they had, they let go. What's the defensive end? I can't think of the defensive end they let go. They let Bird, the safety, go. That was a really good player. Really good player. They let these, like, guys that were just – and it goes off – and I got to admit, I'm going back on my own words of just a few minutes ago, and that's hard for me to do, but I'll do it. They let go of core players that weren't sexy names, but they were the core of what made the Titans the Titans. The Browns have one of them at right tackle. But what they did do, and this is why it's so hard to keep your team together and be the team that you were last year. They had to pay Tannehill. They had to play Henry, right?
Yeah, had to.
And to cut corner, they had to. So to cut corners, they let Conklin go. The safety, I can't think of his name, and there was a defensive tackle that they let go. And all those guys were core players. They weren't the star players that were on the mat. They may have been on the program once or twice a week, once or twice a season, but they weren't they kept their stars. And the identity of the Titans now is Henry and Tannehill and AJ Brown, who is an unbelievable. They got some dudes, but the core guys on defense, Zach, aren't there. And look how they're playing, and the Browns took advantage of that.
Yeah.
The Titans have been up and down, but the Browns took advantage of they got their stars, and we're going to take care of trying to stop the stars. Because the one thing, and this goes back to our conversation about Baker all year long and Tannehill and trying to find the next guy, and that's why it's imperative that the Browns do all they can to make sure that they try to turn Baker into what they need. Because, and Tannehill brought his team back, and he made some plays, but I think the basis of what we saw was a little bit like against Baltimore, when you play Baltimore. If you can get a lead early on Tennessee and truly put the game all on Tannehill, your chances of winning against them goes up tremendously, right?
Tremendously.
If you allow – and so, yeah, Tannehill can be an average quarterback, and if everything goes right in the game plan, and you scheme it, you can play action with them, and you can eliminate – how many – I guess what we got to say where it comes to average quarterbacks and below average quarterbacks and great ones, the great ones can throw the ball 45 times and not have to trick you with play action or trick you with anything, and they can get up and down.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tannehill played okay. He didn't play terrible, but the Browns' game plan screamed, we're not afraid of Tannehill throwing the ball 45 times.
And not to put too much on him, but the Browns just cut their legs from the start, right? The run game opens everything up. They went and got it. So they get the fourth down stop because Tennessee gets cute, and the next time the Titans have the ball, Sheldon Richardson goes in and takes it from Henry. It was like ball game right then and there.
Exactly. And so what I'm saying is the Browns showed us that the other guys are important, because I want to say B.J. Goodson's name, because I tweeted he's not a star.
Been very solid. He's been better than I thought. There's no doubt about it.
Same. Kevin Johnson, I'll give love. No, he wasn't great. He wasn't Deion Sanders. But he was where he needed to be, especially considering you didn't have your number one cornerback. Sendejo, it's almost like saying a cuss word, but he was in the right place at the right time a couple times. This was a team effort, and the others mattered, right? The other guys mattered, and then and look, I mean, how many yards receiving did they get from Peoples-Jones, Hollywood? Like, I mean, if you would have told me on August 15th that you would have gone to Tennessee and how like your receiving core would be that, I would have thought you would have got laughed off the field. So hats off to the Cleveland Browns organization. I can't wait till Monday night. I think Monday night's going to be interesting. I wish we had double headers of Monday nights every week. I love it. I don't mind this Tuesday night game we're about to get tonight either. If we're going to go, NFL might as well go max schedule at this point. Play every damn night. It don't matter. We ain't got nothing else to do. Ain't nobody.
Well, I'll give you one reason right now. Before we get too far into Monday or anything else, I'll give you one reason the Browns can win, and that's that their D-line is balling out, and the Ravens' offensive line has been a mess for 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As for the game in Tennessee, as we kind of wrap up this thought, you're new to this here, Cleveland, right? To significant games, and even though we are quick to say when radio sucks and we're embarrassed and all that. I thought last week asking how big of a game this was is a fair question, right? Because, like, the Browns have not played in big games, right? The Browns coming in had one win over a winning team, right? Like, all that was fair in terms of this team's history and trajectory and all that. To the outside, not to the inside. It didn't matter. The Browns went and took care of business. So that sets up an even bigger game. Just like if you do win, and this one's huge, 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 just like if you do win the next week, it'll be even bigger than the previous one, right? But what I'm trying to say is we don't know yet what kind of launching pad that will be for the Browns or for Rashard Higgins or for DPJ or for Taki, right? Or for Kevin Johnson, who I agree played a great game. The list goes on and on and on and on. We don't yet know what it means if the Browns and Titans have to play again and again. It's a likelihood. It's a possibility to a likelihood. It's right in there. But we do know right now that it delivered us the greatest tweet of all time, and that was sent on Monday, 12/7 at 9:22 a.m. It was a quote retweet. The quote, the tweet was from the OBR film breakdown. It was a clip of the game, and it said, "Watch Taki and Mac Wilson here. This is what you want to see versus the run. Taki stands up the fullback at the point of attack to ruin the scheme before it starts, and Wilson darts through with a proper angle to bring Henry down for the TFL. Might have been Wilson's best game of 2020." And then it is tagged, it is quote retweeted with, "A healthy Mac Wilson is a sight to see." And that tweet was by Mac Wilson himself.
Mac Wilson himself.
I mean, he is my favorite player of all time.
Hey, Mac, go Mac. But you know what? In all honesty, and it is funny, and that was great how you put that together because I chuckled too. Him and Taki did bring the wood, and they did the ugly part of football that we don't talk about. They went up and hit that fullback and those guards. Like, that was old school football, Zach. We don't get those type of games anymore. And to know that those two young linebackers can do that, look, they're going to have problems. Hell, we may see them have problems this week against the Ravens if they really start running to the outside. But for them to show that they had the wherewithal and the toughness to take on the fullback and they were taking on the fullback, Zach. And I'm not sure the play that you're going off of, Zach. They were meeting them at the line of scrimmage. Like, they weren't letting the fullback get to the other side of the line of scrimmage. They were coming out like they were selling out for the run. And you just don't see football played like that anymore because the ball's in the air so much. So my hat's off to them because they brought.
Hey, you never.
They played the game.
We say this, as bad as it goes or whatever happens in the NFL specifically. I can't speak to the NBA or MLB, but you never kill a guy for his rookie year because there's just it's so different than everything. Right? His life, the game, what he's being asked to do, what's going on, all of that. I don't know that Taki will ever be a plus player, but I can tell you for 100% fact that John Dorsey and his guys chose those two linebackers because they thought they were physical and they did not think that Joe Schobert and Christian Kirksey were physical. So the Browns did what the Browns did, and that's ran those guys out and changed schemes and all this. And Taki got hurt at the end of his first training camp and didn't really play and all this stuff. But that was his kind of game, and he showed up and did that. So how many times you're going to have those games, where he really progresses, what the staff thinks of him, I don't know, and we'll never get that answer even if you ask it because they don't tell the truth. But guys are delivering, and that's really what it takes. Like you're having guys emerge. And the quarterback put up big numbers, and they saw an opportunity to attack. But to me, Dre, it's just the fact that it's game 12, it's week 13, right? And you should see natural growth from the offense, and you're seeing it. It's game 12, it's week 13, you should see natural growth from the defense, and you're seeing it. And so that's what allows you to look down the road and say, if we can get this stability, and if we can get this fair evaluations, and if things can go our way, you want to go for it now. And like I talked about Olivier before, and people get mad when you bring this up. Like, it's fair to ask right now, don't they wish they'd have done something at the trade deadline for the secondary?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah. I mean, if you get.
Let me say that. I framed that like, don't they? I meant to say frame it like it's a fair question. I don't know that answer, but like, the shit still goes through Kansas City, right? And like, even if you play Josh Allen in a blizzard, the motherfucker can throw it 70 yards.
I mean, and that's the other thing. And I get the excitement of yesterday and just this town. We just haven't had this. So I'm like, I was close to tweeting out, act like you've been there before, but we haven't. So,
well, right.
And I heard people saying, well, they can win the Super Bowl now. And I'm like, would y'all chill out? Let's enjoy the moment. Let's enjoy Monday night. I don't know how it's going to look. I'll be honest. I'm a little down because I would prefer. This is the Monday night that you guys deserve. Northeast Ohio deserves to have a sold-out stadium, and they deserve for Zach and I to do a podcast Tuesday afternoon, and me playing an Adele song, and us atoning for the one where the Myles Garrett jersey got ripped because it was against Baltimore, and the ball got returned, and he was crying, and it showed you the bottom of the pit of what the Cleveland Browns organization was. And now you make this whole turn. Like, I'm being honest. Like, I want to start a podcast next week and saying, look what happened then to where we're at now. And it's been an amazing turn, and we're not going to be able to enjoy it. I mean, with the rules and regulations, bars aren't going to be able to stay open until halftime around Cleveland. But that's 2020. They've got the right coach to deal with this because the discipline it takes right now to get your guys to follow all the regulations, all the. I was talking to Rob and Dennis, two of my Steeler friends, and I kind of said to them last night, I was like, do you guys think, and they're huge Steeler fans, they get the game, and I was like, do you guys think that, I go, how important is the number one seed to the Steelers in their opinion? And Rob instantly was like, dude, he goes, I think we can beat Kansas City, but he was like, I'd rather be at home and have that bye week. He goes, with no crowds, he goes, I feel like the Steelers could go to Kansas City and possibly win. Now that's a fan saying that. He goes, but the big thing about the number one seed is, he goes, we need it because we're so banged up. And I didn't thought of it that way because it's a little bit different than it usually has been. That number one seed is important for one reason in a season where there's no fans, to get the bye week.
Yeah. No, as I was writing this morning on the playoffs on how, like, barring something crazy, you can look at the Browns are going to play the Titans, the Colts, or the Bills, right? Well, if the Bills can handle business this week against the Steelers, I mean, yes, Browns fans will cheer that, because it potentially could mean that the slim division chances are open. However, that advances the Bills to a possibility to where their Week 17 might not mean anything to them. So it's little games within the game. Like, of those three, you absolutely want to play the Colts. And you might think I'm crazy because you just beat the shit out of the Titans, right? But I think, Dre, you've done a pretty good job of explaining how no one's calling it a fluke. It wasn't. It was an ass-kicking domination about how it could be completely different in 4 weeks. But again, you don't know that, and you don't control that. So you just have to go play. And for the Browns, like, they got this Monday night game because of Lamar Jackson. Guys, let's just be honest, right? But as it's turned out, the Browns are playing their best ball in 30 years, and they're at home. And there's the pandemic, and there's all the things you can't mention, and the Ravens have been through this. What more could you ask for than a chance to knock out Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? Right? On your home turf. What more could you ask for than the national TV spotlight for the best team that you've had, for Myles Garrett, for Nick Chubb, for all these guys, to put it all together out there? And, every fan on Twitter gave Baker Mayfield a 10-year, $567 million deal last Sunday at 4 o'clock. Well, this is the pressure defense that eats him up. So we'll see. He can answer a lot of questions. He can make himself, no hyperbole, a lot of money. So my last thought here would be, and we can play this game if you want, or we can get out of here, would be congrats to all of you who have stuck it out and who have waited for a game like this in a December like this. And congrats to those of you who still number one rival with the Browns in a playoff race and the division door not being totally closed is the media.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Congrats. To those that are still fighting the media. I mean, I get it. The one guy is a piece of shit, but he is who he is. Why would you let that take away from your anger? Control. I feel like this year I've had so many conversations with my kids that play into this. Control what you control. Control what you can control. Who cares what the media says? Most of them, for the most part, really do try their damnedest to do a good job. It can't help some. In any other job, half of y'all work with people that are half-assed at their job and don't deserve their job or don't know how to do it. So whose fault really is it if you're consuming media that you think is trash?
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing about Twitter is there's a button called follow and unfollow, right?
Right.
And it doesn't do us any good to continue to do this. I'll just say one more. I mean, I can go 10 or 15 more if you can, Dre. I don't know what you have or don't.
I got time, man.
Okay.
Making lemonade out of these.
So I heard something today as I was driving, and it sparked me. We haven't played congrats in a while.
We haven't,
right?
No.
So, congrat to you guys who spent this. I heard the Tyson fight has grossed $80 million.
That's a congrats. You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you did. Thank you. Good job. Because I didn't like the idea, and it was a joke at first to even think about it. My son knows that I'm into an hour in the podcast, so he brought me some. He brought me some gummies. That's a good son. I love you, man. He wants me to keep eating, and he knows if I eat the gummies, he gets to eat the gummies. Zach, I was mad about this whole Tyson Roy Jones fight because that was our era when they fought when we were growing up. But I gotta say, I didn't spend the $50, but I did see it. It actually was cool to have an exhibition of it and to see and what ended up happening. It ended up being entertaining, I guess. Would it be entertaining, Zach, in a non-pandemic year? I don't know. But you and I we've wasted way more than $50 for entertainment in our life and not gotten the joy and laughs I got out of watching that.
See that it was a hard no for me. But I get it. And I guess I didn't finish there, but I guess I had a double congrat rather than congrats. I can go with you with congrats on that one because you know what the congrat is? Congrat to boxing. When in 2020, Mike Tyson, who else could do that right now? If Floyd fought again, he couldn't do that.
Well, Floyd's going to fight that guy now.
Yeah, but that's not boxing. See that you're going to get me so mad and angry, like old man. Okay. I'm not big in WWE wrestling, but there are nights where my timeline gets taken over by it, and I'm like, congrats to Dre because I gotta go away from Twitter because I can't read. Yeah, well, there's a follow button. There's a mute unmute button.
But that's what it was, though. It was WWE entertainment, Zach, more than anything else, and I don't know why.
Yeah, and I don't
know why. But so I get where you're coming from. You don't want to see fake boxing. You're going to pay to see boxing. Zach Jackson wants to see. He doesn't want to see an exhibition. He wants to see what we grew up on. I agree. I guess what I'm saying to you is we're at a stage that boxing's become so much of a joke, Zach, that the exhibitions are better than the actual fights.
Yeah. Let me see. Do I have another congrat?
That was a good congrat. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, I have a question. It's December 8th, right? And I know. I actually know it. You always say I don't know what day and time it is, and you're usually right, but I know what it is. Like when February 15th rolls around, is there a spring training? Like, is it on?
It's a good question. It's a good question, and this is one of those questions he didn't ask me before we did the podcast. Because of you have to set certain things up and do things, you can't just show up and have spring training, right? I've been told unofficially to be prepared to be in Arizona for a spring training game sometimes around the end of February, the beginning of March. I've also been told that Major League Baseball has no idea what they're going to do, and with the vaccine now starting to get out into the public, there have been some conversations about possibly moving the start of the season back a month so there can be more games with fans in it. And I've also, it's funny you say that, and I won't say names, but the last year has been so weird, and there's been so little conversation to the people that do the games that a lot of us have been emailing and texting each other like, hey, you hear anything from your team? I've had 4 text messages or DMs from other play-by-play guys or sideline guys in the last 4 days of, hey, have you guys heard anything? Everybody's pretty much in the dark right now, so it's a shot in the dark to figure it out. I think Major League Baseball, they're kind of doing like the NFL did 6 months ago. Remember when you kept saying the NFL plans on starting on time, and I was like, no, they won't. But I think Major League Baseball is kind of doing the same thing of we're going to stick with the schedule that we have out there until we realize – because here's the deal. You could play 162 and start on April 1st and have 10% cap capacity until, I don't know, June. Because I know that was the original plan, start in April and hope that your capacity of crowd can go up per month, and by the end of the season, you're up to 80%. You can start on April 1st and do it that way, or you can try to start on May 15th and hope that you can have 140-some games and have a bigger capacity for all those games.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Really
and I'm all for, like, I've been saying really since the beginning of this, like, I hope every league and group, like, takes a look at saying, hey, maybe this is our opportunity to not do things just because they've always been done a certain way, you know? Right. The NBA, like, the stories are all negative, right? You couldn't pay me to actually dive into it, but I know there's some sort of Kyrie LeBron beef. There's James Harden not showing up for camp. There's LeBron bitching about the season starting, which he's right about.
Well, we knew that. He didn't bitch all the way. He gets it. They got to make their money. Well, how you make the money is playing as many games as you can play. It's just where it's at. Let me give you the Kyrie LeBron one, because this one was good. And let's take away our own emotions to it. Kyrie basically went on Kevin Durant's podcast, and you know how Kyrie works. Kyrie is – I'm not going to call him names. But Kyrie basically, he said, I'm finally on the team. I don't got to have to worry about taking the last shot of the game. I don't got to worry. I play with somebody that I trust to take the last shot of the game. So that got back to hey, to be honest, the NBA is losing. You want to do a congrats? Congrats to us as consumers. Congrats to Richard Jefferson, Channing Frye, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie, because look, they got they got us in December talking about what they've said on their own podcast.
Yeah.
So Richard Jefferson basically went back to LeBron and was like, how'd you feel about that? And LeBron, I thought, was genuine as he's going to be with the microphone in front of him and the millions of people hearing it, and saying, you know what, I tried my best to try to make Kyrie into an MVP. I'm hurt because as much as I tried to make him and turn him into a better player and get him the endorsements and everything he wanted, we just never saw eye to eye, but we won a championship out of it. And he kind of shrugged his shoulders. He could have thrown – I'm going to text you what I want to say because if I say it.
Well, let me say this. I did catch the tail end of his segment on this. Like, we're past the point of LeBron, having to respond to everything, right? He's out there, and this is what he is, and we know and we appreciate in many ways that he's not afraid to put his feelings out there about certain things, right? But, like, this was his opportunity to and LeBron is a street smart dude, right? To just decimate Kyrie and say, rather than saying, I heard it and this is how I respond, rather than say, I just won a championship 2 months ago, and the NBA said we got to start again in a week. And, like, I've won this many championships, and my whole focus at the end of my career here is winning more championships. So to this guy who hasn't won one since he was with me and has done nothing but soil his name and embarrass himself over and over again, I'm not really going to concern myself with what that guy says about anything, because he's just going to say something stupid the next day. That's how he absolutely should have responded to that.
Actually, Kyrie's not going to say anything tomorrow. Didn't you read his... You're right, but you know what? That's what he should say. But why do any of these guys say it? Like, why do LeBron don't have to say anything ever again?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a situation every month where LeBron has to give a political answer because he's LeBron, right? Politically correct answer, not talking about LeBron's politics, because I know some of you guys still worry about that shit. But, like, this was the opportunity where he didn't have to do that. So I guess maybe he's not programmed to just say no comment, but he could have decimated Kyrie, and I think it's a blown opportunity.
He could have. Yes. But I just texted you why he didn't. Read your phone. I'll just text you why he didn't. And that's look, he should have said no comment. But as you know, the politics of it's different when it's your peers, right, Zach? Like, a lot of people can talk about you, and you're really good at ignoring it, and you say I drag you into it. It's fine. But if somebody, the only people that can get emotions out of you are the people that have your heart some way or another, whether you hate or love someone.
That's true. Sure, I'm totally speaking for someone else here. There's no doubt about it. Yes.
Right. And what I text you is what really is going on. And he knows it, and that's why he's playing political, Zach. And I don't do this on the podcast very often. But there is a reason why LeBron Ramon James from Akron, Ohio is playing this politically. And he knows if I say too much or if I get into a tit for tat, all I need is Kyrie to put that out there, and that's a whole other headache I don't want to work with.
Yeah.
so I was hurt. Kyrie was my guy. I tried my best to get him an MVP and to get him a championship. It just didn't work out. Good luck.
Well, I mean, for the NBA in general, and it's a star-driven league, like, to get back to congrats, like, there's no such thing as bad PR. Nobody would be – I mean, is anybody in town talking about Cavs training camp?
No. I barely know their team. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
All right, let's do this right now. Put your phone down.
All right. Okay.
2020-2021 Cavaliers. We got to name them. You go first, one at a time.
Larry Nance Jr.
Colin Sexton.
Andre Drummond.
Dylan Windler.
Oh, you cheat.
No, I only know me and Dylan have a mutual friend. It's the only reason I know that.
I know. I'm going to say, how did you remember him? Kevin Love.
Did you say Kevin Love? Sorry. It faded out.
Kevin Love.
Okay.
Kevin Love.
Darius Garland.
Okay. This is where it's going to get tricky, people. I can't even think of my boy's name, but I know him. He's been on the team. He's been on the team forever, and he's terrible. It's the three spot. Didn't they just get another big man?
Oh, you're talking about the white guy that doesn't belong in the league. Yeah. You know his name.
Yeah, JaVale McGee.
Oh, wow. Okay, Jetty.
Yeah, that's who I was looking for. Yeah, you take Jetty. Who was the number one draft pick? Isaac from Auburn. Can't think of his last name.
Isaac Okoro.
Okoro, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not done. I can tell you right now.
Let's see if I can get one. Yeah, Delhi's back.
Oh, yeah.
We made it a lot further than I thought we were going to.
We did, but we ain't going no further.
I was about to pick Terrell Brandon in the third round.
That's the best. That's sad. And I'll be honest with you, we probably, when spring training starts, we probably can do the same thing with the Indians as well.
Probably. You got one or not? I can go one more.
No, I'm done. I can cheat, but I'm not. I mean, I know faces, and I know you're going to say somebody that'll be like, yeah, I knew they had him. Let me think. Give me a second. Dude, they haven't played in almost a year, Zach.
So.
Yeah, I'm out. You got another one?
I'll just say this. So, I know Dylan Windler because I'm a college basketball junkie, right? But I only know him in this context because we have a mutual friend in the sports business who, like, kind of through the process had reached out to me and said, basically, Dylan thinks that one of these three teams is going to draft him. Do you have anything to do with the Cavs? And I was like, no, not anymore. And so his rookie year last year, he didn't end up playing, but he came out with Larry Nance Jr. and a couple of other players to Browns practice. And, people know Larry Nance Jr. around here, and he's embraced that. He's been a great ambassador, right? So I don't want to say a big deal because none of those guys were the star like that OBJ was or Miles was, right? But Dylan was just kind of standing to the side. And so I went up and talked to him and said, hey, so I know you because of so-and-so. And he was like, yeah, like he didn't expect that anybody in freaking training camp knew that he was first, even though he was a first-round pick, right?
And JD, I like Bickerstaff. I do like their coach too. Bickerstaff. I mean, I like it. The one thing I'll give the NBA, and look, being an NBA head coach he pays well. Like Silas, I feel bad for Silas down in Houston, only because I know both of them. They got in because of their dads. They worked their way up. They finally get an opportunity, and this is the opportunity you give Stephen Silas. But I like Bickerstaff, and I like what he did with the team last year. I do like the two young guards. The best chance they got is being an 8th seed. They probably won't happen. I hope they just get.
Oh, I disagree. I'm not sure they're going to win many games at all.
They're not. I said the best that could possibly happen is an 8th seed.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I thought you said this is the best chance they've had. Well, I guess both could be true. Jesus.
Congrats to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah. Yes. Congrats. From what I understand, the next draft is the one you want to be in. So.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of wings, isn't it? A bunch of wing players.
Yeah, and that's what today's game is. So we got all sorts of time to talk about that. So.
Let me ask you about the Harden situation. And I'm not, and we'll wrap with this. I got to go for our family walk here shortly. I want to say this the right way because as you know our podcast, we're not to get off our lawn, guys, too much. But I'm going to be that with James Harden right now, and I don't want to be. They changed that entire franchise for your ass. They basically put the ball in your hand and allowed you to do whatever the hell you wanted to do. They changed the whole scenario of what basketball was supposed to be. They made it into a what Deke would call, I can't even say the word anymore because I don't want to put Deke. They put it into a 5 and 11 under team basically. They had PJ Tucker playing center at 6'6". Mm-hmm. And I get you're not happy with management or you're not this, but what kind of, and you know I don't usually do this, Zach. I got no respect for what James Harden is pulling and doing, and I know that the NBA is a players' league. He's turned down a 2-year, $100 million contract, and now he's not showing up to camp. And he's at some point in time, man, enough's enough.
It is.
Can be an ass, like you said about LeBron perfectly. About once a month, he politically has to step into something and say it the right way or do the right way. And we know LeBron is not perfect. LeBron does what he has to do too. But for the most part, for 18 years, that kid has said and done it the right way, even when we both know he's full of shit. But what's happening in Houston right now, that's a joke, man. That's a mockery to what professionalism is. Show up, be a real person. They've traded any and everything. I mean, what else could have Houston done for James Harden over the last 4 seasons,
yes.
Zach?
Hey, star-driven league, and these guys only have so much time, right? And they have this window. They've earned the power. But to that organization that pays you millions and millions and has allowed you to become that, you have a responsibility of not only professionalism, because that's the baseline, but leadership, right? And it's pathetic. I mean, we fought about this with J.R. Smith a few years ago in the Cavs.
Yeah.
And I was right.
But
and they replaced him with Dylan Windler.
That was your win on the day. By the way, the other thing we did not discuss, and we can roll on this, LeBron signed that contract, leaving it open to be teammates or to oppose Bronny James. Can LeBron put any more pressure on that kid, by the way? You named him after yourself. And now all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to sign this contract, take this money. And now at the end of it, he should be ready to come play with Daddy.
From what I understand, projections of Junior making the NBA are a little ambitious. But he's only a sophomore in high school, so
right.
We'll see. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he chose this.
But if you own the Cleveland Cavaliers and you got the 20th pick in the draft, and LeBron's a free agent, and your team ain't been worth a crap, and even if you are Dan Gilbert, you all don't like each other, you may draft Bronny just to get 2 more years with LeBron, even at 40.
What a world. What a world.
You can't even go. I know it's crazy and it's ridiculous, and I wouldn't buy into it. But you know what? If they had it, I would be at Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage, Fuel, History, whatever they call it, the Gund Arena that day to see that happen.
All right. We're going to close on this story. So, my lovely girlfriend, Mindy, one of the best and bravest humans on the planet, she sometimes asks why I don't talk about her or us on social media or on the podcast.
This is a big moment, people.
And it's because it's none of anybody else's fucking business. And frankly, I've had unpleasant experiences with people I don't know, either getting involved in my personal life or frankly threatening my family over stuff on Twitter. I'm not going to cry about it. This is reality. So I just choose to go along, and Dre says I live in my mom's basement, and we roll with it. It's a shtick, right? Podcasts are new, but sometimes you take an old school radio bit and you ride it till you can't ride it anymore. So
for sure.
Again, she's wonderful and helps me, Dre's not exaggerating when he says that I don't know what day or time it is, or I'm not available at certain times because I'm not qualified to be an adult, and he's exactly right on those. She helps me along this adulthood process here as I get ready to celebrate my 42nd Christmas on this earth. So she has a couple of boys. They're 11 and 9. I think I'll get in trouble if I screw that up. And they're sports nerds like us and like you guys, and they're great. And that's my bonding with them, right, is I throw out obscure facts and trivia, and they eat it up, right? And we talk about fantasy football, and we build DraftKings teams for obscure games that only I'm watching. And, You know, like when we were doing the card thing early in the pandemic, like I just found these cards in storage at my parents' house and just gave them to them, and they think it's great, right? So about a week ago, and I haven't even told this to Dre. So the older one says, hey, I want to show you these cards that I got. And I don't even remember who the other two guys were. I want to say, you know, one of them was like a notable player, and I know nothing about the card business. I understand the card business is coming back, Dre, but I don't know anything about it. And it was like a notable player. It was a fancy looking card. I don't think it was really worth anything because he had allowed it to get kind of dog-eared, but it was cool. And the other one was like some player that I didn't know. And that doesn't mean this player is not any good. But the third one was this Tyler Naquin card from minor leagues, like a year Tyler Naquin had been drafted or traded for or whatever. And so he says, do you think that if I sent this to the Indians that Tyler Naquin would sign it? And I said, okay. I said, yes. I said, no, I don't know Tyler Naquin, and I don't know if he will, but here's what you do. You know, you make a self-addressed envelope, you put it in, you write a real nice, polite letter, and you say, my name is so-and-so, and I'm a fan, and I would appreciate if you would do this. And I said, and it'd probably be many months from now, but there's at least a chance. And I said, you have to be willing to lose the card. You make sure you put your return address on there, but you give it a shot. And so for like an 11-year-old, this is a great project, right? And B, right. It's like an awesome thing. Like he's going through letter writing skills, and he's like excited because he worships these guys, all of them, right?
Right.
So he goes about and he does it, and he asks me and his mom how he should word the letter and how he should do this. And the letter's sitting on the counter for a couple days. He looks up the Indians' address on his iPad, and he's ready to go. So he comes home from school last week, and he goes out and he's like, I need to mail this. And I said, hey, buddy, I said, I know you want to, but I said, not a big deal. Nobody will be back at the Indians building until the end of January at the latest. So I said, whatever. Well, he runs out and throws it in the mailbox and puts up the flag. And 15 minutes later, we see the mail truck come away. Well, 15 minutes after that, I get on Twitter and I see Indians non-tender Tyler Naquin. Well, buddy, welcome to your lifetime of disappointment as a sports fan. But he is pretty pumped about the Browns. Yesterday, he was wearing a Mike Bibby jersey to school from Sacramento Kings. I mean,
I was going to say Arizona Wildcats or Sacramento Kings.
I mean, Bibby's high school class in '96, so that's a pretty old jersey.
Right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to tell that story because I thought it was pretty funny, and I hadn't told you that either.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I got to finish it off with, in Zach, in typical fashion, he could have just texted me, and I would have texted Tyler, and he could have had this picture signed already. I'll tell him, no matter who Tyler Naquin plays for, that ball, that card will be signed, and I'll get a Tyler Naquin back. Or Merry Christmas from
every
Uncle
kid.
Dre.
Every kid needs a Tyler Naquin autograph. There's no doubt about it.
Welcome to fandom, son. He don't even play on the team no more. Oh, 2020. Oh, 2020. Thank you guys for listening. This has been a fun one.
So congrats to Tyler Naquin on his new opportunities, and congrats, kid. You're never seeing that card again.
Konnichiwa to the kids in fandom. That's what life's about, kid. You got nothing to look up to.
I wish I could say we'd see you Monday at the stadium. I really do. But instead, we'll just see what happens. Enjoy it, guys. Just savor it. And the Dylan Windler and the Cavs start in 2 weeks. Talk to you then.
Hey, the Cavs play on Monday night, too, by the way.
I can't wait.